Turn up the dive, feel the vibe, get ready to ignite. Untold stories in the airways, flying through the night. Experience voices, tales so bold. Streaming live, the truth unfolds. Untold Radio Network, where secrets come alive. New episodes daily, the mysteries thrive. Great guests, super chat, so I remember I share and subscribe. Join the side where truth can't hide. Aliens in the attic, UFOs in the sky. Cryptids lurking, oh my, ghosts in the hallway whispering your name. The paranormal, the unexplained. Become a VIP, get the inside scoop. Unlock the mysteries, be part of the group. Live streaming stories, they're talking to you. Super chats buzzing, join the crew. Untold Radio Network, where secrets come alive. New episodes daily, the mysteries thrive. Great guests, super chat, it's a wild member ride. Share and subscribe, join the side where truth can hide. So if you've got the guts and you want to explore, tune into the untold, it's what you're looking for. From aliens to ghosts and all that's unseen. Untold Radio Network, where the world's mysteries convene.
Good morning, monsters, and welcome to this week's episode of Monsters on the Edge here on the Untold Radio Network. I'm your host, Barnaby Jones from Cryptids, Anomalies, and the Paranormal Society. Ladies and gentlemen, if you guys haven't checked it out yet, the Hairy Man of Dairyland, Wisconsin's Bigfoot is out now. It is available on Paraflix Paranormal Plus platform. Try saying that 5 times fast. I can't even say it once. Paraflix Paranormal Plus streaming service, as well as on the Wisconsin Caps Patreon page. Head on over there. You can watch it for just $3. That's less than a bottle of soda nowadays. So check it out here.
Right here in the road, and it was right on the line, standing right there.
Whatever it was breaking trees, breaking branches, and I've never heard that before.
And from the basement door, I was like, Louie, I'm pretty sure there's a footprint out here.
And that's when the rocks started coming out of this tree line.
All I seen was hair. And it was like arched over right here.
And then out of nowhere we hear this loud, like earth-shaking grunt.
It rolled its shoulder and grabbed the ground and pulled itself towards my vehicle.
And I heard a plunk, and I come over here, and that squash was laying about right there in the middle of my garden, you know.
How do you walk in that in bare feet? At 30-degree temperature.
Did you see that?
What was that? I saw something dark in the light from the right to the left.
It was big.
Could be the little different maybe.
If you guys want to meet the CAPS team in person, we are going to be at the Paranormal Chicago Convention, June 7th in Countryside, Illinois. Admission is only just $1. You can't do anything for $1 in Chicago. And parking is free. There's a great lineup of speakers for this event. Head on over to wisconsincaps.com, public events tab, and get all the information on this and all of our events. I'm going to be at a bunch of libraries this summer, starting off with the Lodi Public Library, Cedarburg Public Library, and July 19th we are working with Central Wisconsin CE5 and PBS Wisconsin for filming a brand new documentary on UFOs, UAPs, and the CE5 method right here in Adams, Wisconsin. So it's going to be down in the Baraboo, Madison kind of area. For those of you who are not familiar, you can get all the information on that at Central Wisconsin CE5 on Facebook or Wisconsin Caps. And you can check that out if you want to be a part of this. We are going to be at UFO Days in Elmwood, Wisconsin, July 26th, SilCon in Gaze, Illinois in September, Van Meter Visitor Festival in September, and the Neenah Public Library for a special presentation on paranormal activity as well as a paranormal investigation of the library. You don't want to miss that one. It's going to be great. We are pre-recorded today. So with that being said, my guest for today is the one and only Eric Altman. He is a cryptozoologist and a paranormal enthusiast specializing in researching the Bigfoot Sasquatch phenomenon with a combined 45 years of study, field research, and investigations. Eric is a well-respected field investigator, contributing author, founder, and director of the Pennsylvania Cryptozoology Society, one of the founding members of and the executive director of the Pennsylvania Bigfoot Society. Eric was also the host and co-founder of Beyond the Edge Radio, a weekly radio programming covering a variety of paranormal and fringe topics for over 12 years from 2007 to 2019. Eric has and is still actively investigating cases, citing claims, and continues to conduct field work dating back to 1997. He has investigated and assisted in investigating hundreds of Bigfoot sightings, encounters, and claims in Pennsylvania and across the country. Eric serves as the host and organizer of the East Coast Bigfoot Conference from 2000 to 2011. And is the host and organizer of the Pennsylvania Bigfoot Camping Adventure, an annual charity fundraising event from 2017 to 2025. For over 25 years, Eric is a much sought-after public speaker on the topics of Bigfoot and other paranormal topics across the country. Eric has appeared in numerous documentaries, films, and television programs about Bigfoot, such as the Travel Channel's Paranormal Declassified and the Discovery Channel Plus series Fight Club, and the recent Small Town Monsters 6-episode series, Sasquatch Unearthed the Ridge. Eric has written for and contributed to numerous books and magazine articles on the subject of Bigfoot. He has also been interviewed and is a featured guest on hundreds of national radio programs and podcasts and shows. He has been featured on in the national and local newspaper articles and various forms of print media. Eric is a very well-rounded individual. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show, Eric Altman. All right, Eric, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Well, thanks for having me, Barnaby. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure is mine, man. I appreciate your time as always, and it is quite an honor to talk to somebody that has such a long longevity in the field of research of all things cryptid and Bigfoot related. So this is going to be fun. I'm looking forward to talking with you.
Yeah, it's more stupidity on my part for being in as long as I have been. I should have got out a long time ago, but I'm just I'm too dense.
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong. So there's, the main thing that I want to talk to you about is, you have been doing this for a long time. You've been in the field for, I think it was, over 45 years now?
Well, actually, I've been in the field for about 28 years.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I've been studying the phenomenon since I was 10, so I have about 45 years of study on the subject. I didn't get into actually going into the field probably around 27 years old. So 26, 27 years old, I finally decided to get out there and start doing field research. I had just been reading about it, studying the books, watching the old TV shows, and I wanted to find out for myself, and when I was growing up as a kid, there were a lot of newspaper articles about Bigfoot sightings and experiences in my hometown. So I wanted to find out for myself if there was really something to this. I had just gotten out of college. I'd just gotten married. And, at that point, I was pretty much done with the big things in my life and wanted to try to get into this as a hobby. And so for the past 28 years, I've been investigating cases, sightings, encounters, claims, of all things Bigfoot related and some cryptid related as well. I've investigated some Thunderbird cases, Dogman cases, black cat cases, strange different cryptids I've looked into. So
that's interesting you bring that up. Like I hear Pennsylvania is the highest concentration of the Thunderbird or the pterosaur sightings. You've looked into a couple of them. What have you found out with those guys?
Well, it's hard to really gather any evidence on that because usually it's a sighting where somebody sees it flying in the sky, and unless they take a picture or video, there's nothing left behind. So all you can do is really take the word of the eyewitness, document what they saw, and just keep a record of it so that if somebody else comes forward and says they saw the same thing, you can compare the notes and see if it was a similar creature or different. But we've had some pretty interesting cases over the last couple of years. I'll share a couple with you if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
I had a gentleman call me in 2023, April of 2023, and he was at a gas station, which also serves as a bus stop for his son. They drop his son off at the bus stop, and he puts him in the car and takes him home. And the guy was waiting at the gas station / bus stop to pick up his son. And there is a really bad storm moving into the area, dark clouds. He said you could tell the difference between the regular sky and just a plain black sky. So this storm was moving in, and he heard some thunder and lightning and saw the lightning and stuff. And he happened to look up, and right at the edge of this storm moving in, he saw this enormous sized black bird, and it wasn't flapping its wings like a crow or a turkey buzzard or something like that. This thing was soaring. It had its wings extended and was just soaring on the air current. And he watched it for a while. Finally, it did flap its wings one time, but it just continued in a southerly direction and disappeared from sight. And he was so impressed with this thing. And he said it was huge. He described it having large talons. It had black feathers all over it. It didn't have like a membrane like a pterosaur or a pterodactyl. It was just a large black bird. And unfortunately, he couldn't gauge the size of it because when it's flying in the size, there's no comparison that you can put it next to. But he said it was much larger than any bird he had ever seen before. And it shook him up pretty good because we talked on the phone for a good 45 minutes, and he just wanted some answers. He didn't know what it was, never saw anything like it before. And he said it was flying in the direction of South Greensburg, Pennsylvania, which is my hometown. And South Greensburg actually has a long history of Thunderbird sightings. There have been multiple sightings over the years, maybe 2 dozen sightings over the past 30, 40 years that have been documented and reported. So I found that intriguing that it's flying in that direction where all these other Thunderbird sightings have occurred. So that happened in April of 2023. Another report that happened, and this was in, I want to say 2022, the summer of 2022. A young man was driving home on a backcountry road, and he lives in a small rural town in southwestern Pennsylvania. And as he's driving along, there's people behind him, a couple car lengths behind him. He's driving along, not really paying attention to anything but the road, and all of a sudden, this enormous black bird just dive bombs his car, and it flies right at his windshield. And at the very last second, it pulls up and flies over the roof of his car and disappears. He literally thought he was going to hit it. That's how close it was. But as he explained to me, the bird was so large that the wings actually were almost twice the size of his vehicle. It completely covered the windshield plus about 4 feet on each side. So guesstimating the size of his windshield is probably about 6.5, 7 feet. And that additional 8 feet on top of that, you're looking at about a 15-foot wingspan. Mm-hmm. And he was so shaken up, he stopped his car almost immediately because, like I said, he thought he was going to hit it. and the car behind him stopped as well, and they got out and started talking, and both people in the vehicles in front and back saw the same thing. The people behind him saw the rise up just before it hit the windshield and fly off, and they were all amazed. They'd never seen a bird that large before. And those are just two examples of some of the Thunderbird reports that we get, not in just southwestern Pennsylvania, but all across the state. There's other researchers in Pennsylvania that I work with, and they get reports quite frequently. Another one to share with you real quick. I had a call in April of 2024 from a gentleman who studied wildlife biology in college, and he was actually a wildlife biologist for one of the local parks. And he and his wife were sitting out on their back patio enjoying a nice summer of spring eve, and just hanging outside. It's warm out. Not a real sunny sky, but the sun was kind of going down. And they were sitting there talking. He hears this whooshing sound. He said it sounded like a flag unfurling in the wind. And he happened to look up and saw this huge bird just soaring across the top of his house, across some very tall trees, and just disappear from sight. And he sat there and he was like, what in the world was that? His wife saw it too, and she didn't have an answer. So he did a little research online, found out that I look into some of these cases, sent me an email. I called him back. We hooked up, myself and another researcher hooked up with his wife, and he told us he'd never seen anything like it. It was just an enormous black bird with a huge wingspan. He estimated the wingspan to be about 14 feet. And he said it just soared. It didn't flap like a bird would flap flying through the sky, like a robin or a raven or anything like that. Even an eagle. He said, I've seen eagles, and this was much larger than an eagle. And those are probably one of the largest birds. I thought maybe he'd seen a blue heron, because they can look pretty big in the sky. And he said, no, I've seen blue heron plenty of times. I've seen them flying. This was not a blue heron. It was something I've never seen before, with an enormous wingspan, and it only lasted a few seconds until it disappeared from sight. But he said that it left a lasting impression on him.
Wow. So what's interesting is all three of these describe them as actual birds. They're not the leathery wings of like the pterosaurs or anything like that. The one at the gas station bus stop there, you said even saw close enough to see the talons and stuff.
Yeah. Very large talons underneath it as it flew over.
Wow. So how else are they described other than black? You said it wasn't a heron. So if is it a long neck? Is it more like a crow neck? What kind of beak or anything? Like, was there any more details in the descriptions?
Not in these particular cases that I described, but the others have described a very large beak, a neck. And sometimes people have described them having a white ring around their neck. Just behind the head. And there's really people don't give a really good description of the head or the rest of the body, or if it has a long tail. And I've had people send me pictures and say, I saw a Thunderbird, and I look at it and I can tell right away it's a heron because it has those legs up and it has that long extended tail to it. So I haven't had people tell me that they've seen a long extended tail. Mainly it's just a giant black bird with the enormous wingspan. And there have been cases, and not recently, but there have been some cases in Pennsylvania where people have described this bird as being featherless, having kind of a membrane type skin, or even a leathery type of skin to it, much like a pterodon or a pterodactyl would have, and where the head has a point, like a crown, pointed crown at the top of it, and a long extended beak, much like a prehistoric bird. Those cases I find utterly fascinating, because this is something that they are seeing what they're claiming they're seeing and describing what they're describing, this is something that went extinct millions of years ago. It should not be around here. But people are claiming they're seeing that, not just in Pennsylvania, but all over the country, especially in Texas. They get a lot of reports in Texas of this membrane primal looking bird. And who knows what it is.
Well, it's funny you should mention the white collar around the neck. I've been thinking of the condors out in California, condors and stuff. They have all black with the white rings around their neck. And that would be, that's the largest wingspan, I think, of any living bird. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure the condors are the biggest. I want to say theirs is like 8 or 9 feet, which still is not 15 feet. But
right. In Pennsylvania, we don't have condors. So, I mean, the largest bird we have here would be like a turkey vulture or turkey buzzard. And I've seen them up close. I've seen them eating roadkill, and they're very large birds. They stand about 3 feet tall when they're on the road. They're big birds. And they range in color from gray to like a dark gray, almost even a black color. So they could probably easily be mistaken. But the wingspan for a vulture is probably about 7 feet at most, 6 to 7 feet at most. And these things that people are describing are 14 to 16 feet. So are we dealing with some kind of genetic mutation of a turkey vulture, or like a hybrid or something like that? I don't know what we're dealing with because we don't have evidence. All we have is, like I said, the eyewitness testimony, and they're telling us what they saw, and you got to document it and try to compare notes.
And that's the definition of cryptozoology too, is, an animal that shouldn't be there, or, isn't discovered by science, or isn't credible to that science. So just because, you don't think that you have condors or these other birds in Pennsylvania doesn't mean that they couldn't have, one lone condor flew in or something. And, it's, I always say, look at butterflies. They migrate all the way from North America all the way down to South America, and if this little butterfly can do it, think how far, these birds or, any of that stuff can fly if they really wanted to across country, if the conditions are right. And, so I don't know.
Yeah, you can't rule out any possibility. I mean, it could have been a condor. It could have been a turkey vulture they saw. I wasn't there to verify what they saw. And sometimes and I know this for a fact, if you're in an area and you see something you've never seen before, sometimes your imagination can take over and make that thing twice the size of what it really is, or your sight can be kind of, and your brain could kind of be trying to figure out what you're looking at, and maybe perhaps it adds extra dimension to what the actual bird is. So like I said, you can't rule anything out. And without any evidence to back up these claims and sightings, that's all they are claims and sightings.
Absolutely. That's how I feel about like UFOs and stuff like that. Like my team researches all this stuff, and people say, well, I had a UFO encounter, and I'm like, well, that's great. It's a point on the map, because at the end of the day, it's not going to be back tomorrow. There's no evidence or physical evidence. Did you get a picture of it? No. And the pterosaurs and the Thunderbirds, are about the same thing. If it's flying in the sky, it's really hard to get any evidence to track it down or anything. So
yeah. And it's funny you bring up UFOs. Just share this with you real quick. My background is in cryptozoology, mainly Bigfoot, but I also am a paranormal enthusiast, and I look into UFO cases from time to time. I have a very good friend of mine who's a UFO researcher. January of 2024, I was outside, and I have several small dogs, and I let them out on my lunch break so they could use the bathroom, run around the hill and stuff. And as I'm standing on the top of the hill, I watch for hawks that come into the area, because they like to dive down and go after small animals. So my attention's focused on the sky, and I happen to see this white wispy thing moving across the sky from a northerly direction to a southwesterly direction. And I looked at it, and I'm like, that's weird. It doesn't look like a plane. So I had my cell phone on me. I thought, I'll take a video of it and see what it was. And it went into a cloud bank. When it came out the other side of the cloud bank, I could clearly see this thing did not have wings. It had no contrail. It made no sound. It was just a silver, shiny, metallic object moving across the sky. I got about a minute, maybe 45 seconds of it videotaped. And I didn't know what it was. I'm not going to call it a UFO, but I shared it with other UFO researchers and investigators and some folks that are able to enhance the video. And when you look at it in the enhanced video, it's blown up and it's slowed down. It's definitely not a plane. So whatever it was, I don't know. I just happened to be in the right place at the right time with a phone and actually caught something. That doesn't prove it's a UFO. It just proves that I caught something weird looking in the sky that at this point nobody can positively identify.
Which is a UFO, unidentified flying object.
Yeah, technically, yes.
So yeah, that's awesome. That's really cool. we always talk about, people see things all the time and they don't have the wherewithal to pull out their phones or take a picture or anything like that. And very similar. I was driving home from Chicago a couple weeks ago, and coming up by Milwaukee here in Wisconsin, and I looked over to the east, and the sun was just coming up, and there's still a couple stars in the sky, but they're very faint because the sun's coming up, and there's what looks like a cross in the sky. So it's like a big or a lowercase T, but then at the bottom of the T, there's two arcs that come up to each of the points of the lowercase T.
Wow.
And this is up in the sky, just hanging there, and it's bright. I mean, it's brighter than any of the stars in the sky or anything. And I'm watching it for a couple miles as I'm driving here, and I'm thinking, I should really pull over and get a picture of this because, how many times do we complain about other people not doing that? So I found an off ramp, and I pulled over and I tried to get a picture with my phone, and it was just a bright blotch on my screen. Well, I had been coming back from research, so I had a good camera. And I got out, went to the back of my car, got out the camera. And by the time I did that, it had gone behind this massive amount of clouds, and it wasn't going to come back out. So I don't know what it was.
That's always the way it is, isn't it?
Yep. Yeah. But that was really weird. I've never seen anything like that in the sky. It wasn't a plane. It wasn't moving. It was just sitting there. But it was this weird T with the arcs to it. So I don't know.
I've never heard of anything described like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I've never seen anything like that. So
definitely strange.
Yeah, interesting. All right. Well, let's shift gears back over here to Bigfoot. And actually, I want to go back. Like I said, you've been researching this for quite a while now. You've gotten to meet a lot of the older researchers and all this stuff. And what I always find very fascinating about this is reading some of the older books. Like John Green and names escape me at the moment. All the old researchers, we'll just say, in these older books, they all kind of talk about these creatures as more fact than, you read about the Himalayan Yetis and stuff. And it's not like if they do exist, it's always, these things are seen, the natives see them, this is what they call them, this is what they do, this is their behaviors and stuff. And nowadays, all this research that's coming is, if they exist, if this is true, and, why have we gotten away from, where's this disconnect come?
Lack of evidence. It really has. I mean, if you think about it, back then we were just in the infant stages of researchers investigating this, and they were doing it as scientifically as possible, but the majority of researchers weren't scientists. Dr. Jeffrey Meldrum likes to call them citizen scientists. They're doing the best they can with the knowledge that they have. So they were documenting these cases and the historical aspects of it and putting it out there as fact. At that time, there wasn't evidence, but I think they were relying on the fact that they were going to get evidence. And there were casts found and occasional hair maybe, but nothing really definitive back then. So they were putting this information out, and they're saying this is factual information. And now we're at the point 40, 50 years later, maybe 60 years later, into the study, and we really have no definitive evidence to prove this thing exists. We have what I call circumstantial or anecdotal evidence, such as the footprint cast. All that does is prove that there's something out there with large feet leaving these impressions in the ground. We have hair that comes back. In some cases, it's unidentified, but most cases it can be identified and matched with the common animal. The photographs, the videos are horrendous. I don't put any stock in them whatsoever because of AI and CGI and Photoshop and all that stuff. So I throw most of them out. Game cameras have been out there for a long, long time. We have no clear, definitive pictures that can't be debunked. So there's really not a lot of evidence. So people are getting to the point where they're being very cautious about saying these things exist. And they're saying if they're real, if they exist, if they do this, and I'm of that mind frame too, because after 28 years in the field, I've had some strange experiences. I've heard some crazy stuff. I've cast footprints. I've collected hair, but I've never seen a Bigfoot that I can definitively say that was a Bigfoot. And I have no proof to come forward and present to you or any of the listeners or anybody that Bigfoot is real and exists. Am I pretty sure it does? I'm fairly convinced that there's something out there that people are seeing and experiencing. Is it a Bigfoot? It kind of fits the description, what people say they claim they see, but without a body, without a part of a body, we have no way to say that Bigfoot is real. So I think that's why people today are going down that pathway of being more cautious and saying if it's real, because they don't want to go out on that limb and say, yeah, they're real. Okay, well, back it up and prove it. I can't. Well, then how do you know they're real? So I think that's where we're at now. But I agree with you. Back in the 70s, when I was growing up as a kid, and I've been studying this since I was 10. So back in the 60s, 70s, those books were put out by John Green and Renee Hinden, Peter Byrne, Marion T. Place, just to name a few. They were more story oriented, like this is what happened in this case. Yes. And this is what the person saw. Or these loggers were at a logging camp and something was coming around the logging camp at night and scaring the children and women and the people in the camp. And they sent out posses to get this thing to kill it. And they came back with nothing, but they were terrified. I mean, those are stories that they're basing on what happened and what they were told. They're not saying, oh, maybe a Bigfoot did it. We don't know. Something was out there, but they say it was a Bigfoot. A Bigfoot did it. Native Americans encountered a Bigfoot. Bill saw a Bigfoot cross the road. And they say in those books, if you go back and read them, it was a Bigfoot. Today, it's possibly, if, maybe.
Yeah, you got a point there. I think that's you know, the science is as more mainstream as this gets. You know, like you have TV shows like last summer, there was literally 3 billboards on the main highway here in Wisconsin that all featured a Bigfoot. There was a casino, a car dealership, and I can't remember the third one. But in one 30-mile stretch of highway, there was 3 different billboards that all had Bigfoot on them. And you know, that just shows you how mainstream this is. And even though people are more inclined to talk about it, more inclined to share their stories and stuff now as all the paranormal phenomena and stuff, there's still this disconnect with science wanting to come forward and talk about it and take that ridicule and that on. You know, I think that, you know, let me ask you, what do you think, like, if a actual scientific center, you know, like Harvard or one of the colleges or whatever, set aside funding and sent an entire research group out into the field, like you do with, you know, orangutans or chimpanzees or anything like that, do you think that a very well-funded project could do better than what these quote unquote citizen scientists have done?
No. Okay. And I'll explain why.
Yeah.
Peter Byrne, he's very well known as one of the original 4 horsemen of Bigfoot. He was one of the first 4 that were literally into the subject and studying it and researching it. And he had a project called the Bigfoot Project out of the Dalles in Oregon in the 1960s and 70s. And he was funded. He had several universities and several rich businessmen fund him and gave him millions of dollars to invest in research and study. And he had teams and he had the high-tech equipment back at that time. They spent a lot of time in the woods. They documented what they believed were the best Bigfoot experiences and encounters, and a lot of them they threw out as just hogwash or misidentifications. And they did the studies for years, and they came back with very little evidence. And they weren't able to prove that Bigfoot exists. Now, today, I think they do have a better chance at that because the technology is much more advanced. And if we were to get a scientific team to go into an area where there's no Bigfoot sightings and spend a significant amount of time with the right equipment and just stay there, they might come back with evidence. I can't say for sure, but I've seen it happen. I know people, there's groups that have done it. The North American Wood Ape group out of the Ozarks in Missouri and down into Oklahoma. They've been out in the woods. They have teams that go out for 2 or 3 weeks at a time and just stay there. And then another team will come in and replace them. And it's constant. There's always somebody out there. And they've been doing it for years. and they've come back with some interesting things: wood knocks, howls, footprint discoveries. They've all had their own experiences and sightings, but they haven't come back with evidence to prove that Bigfoot is real. So at this point, and this goes back to what we talked about a little bit ago, I think that's why people are so cautious of saying if Bigfoot's real, if it does exist, because the amount of manpower, hours, money, devotion, equipment used to study this phenomenon, 60 plus years into the study, and we still have nothing to show that Bigfoot does exist.
Interesting. So, you know, Cliff Barrickman, Finding Bigfoot,
Yes.
and everything. Yeah.
He's a good friend of mine. Yep.
Yep. I just listened to you on his show actually yesterday. So, but he talks about how instead of like a solid body for an evidence for not disclosure, but for discovery, a lot of circumstantial evidence as far as like a photograph of the creature and then a video of the creature, audio of the creature, footprints, hair samples, all taken at the same location at the same time, could possibly be enough to prove one of these things. You know, like I always point to Gigantopithecus, right? We have a tooth and a jawbone, and that's all that we have of this creature that's ever been discovered, you know, as far as we know, that isn't sitting in some drawer somewhere. And we claim to know what it ate, how big it was, where it lived, all this stuff about it. So do you think that with enough evidence together, we could prove this thing without having to have a body, or do you think that we would actually still have to have that body brought in?
We still have to have that body brought in to convince mainstream science, because even though a lot of this evidence hasn't been collected at the same place, same time, there's been the hundreds, if not thousands, of castings made. Hair has been collected, scat samples have been collected, audio has been recorded. Some of the most unusual audio I've heard has been recorded over the years. Eyewitness testimony, which I will admit can be flawed. People can misidentify things, but there are some people that have had some very compelling sightings and experiences, and especially when they match up with other people who've had the same sighting, the same type of description, and they don't know each other, and they're not aware of what the other person saw. Those are pretty compelling, but all of that isn't enough to prove it's real. It's not. It may prove it to the lay person or the citizen scientist or the general public, but the scientific community wants a body that they can tear apart, they can dissect, and they can see what it is, and then match it to everything we know, and maybe then they may decide, yes, Bigfoot's real.
Do you think that comes from the amount of skepticism that has been around, or do you think that that's just the way it should be?
Both. I think that's the way it should be to prove that this animal exists. In my heart of hearts, I would love nothing more than all the other evidence that I mentioned that says that Bigfoot's real. I would love nothing more than that. But I know that a lot of that stuff can be faked and hoaxed, and there's a lot of hoaxers out there. So I have to throw that out. As much as I like to lean on it, as much as I have cast really beautiful castings that I just made last year. A lot of that stuff, and because of the skeptics too, as I mentioned, you know, they're gonna, where's the physical evidence? And you show them the cast, and yeah, they can be faked, you know. Fortunately for us in the Bigfoot community, we do have a few scientists that are really starting to get involved in this. And leading the charge is Dr. Jeffrey Meldrum. He's a primatologist and an anatomy foot expert out of Idaho State University. He's been looking into this since the mid-90s. He has the largest footprint cast of anybody in the world. And he's able to study these footprints and see that they're not made by a stagnant cookie cutter foot. He can see the movement in the foot. He can see the toe splay, how the bulges are where they're supposed to be, and how the foot should be if it belonged to a large primate. I mean, so fortunately for us, he's really giving some credibility to what the footprints, especially, and that the Bigfoot might be real. We need more Dr. Meldrums in the field. We really do. there are some starting to get into it, and that's great. Dr. Esteban Sarmiento of the American History Museum out of New York, he's a primatologist, and he's been to several Bigfoot conferences and events, and I've talked to him multiple times. He still doesn't believe Bigfoot exists, but he's compelled enough by it to look into the phenomenon, to do research. That's what we need. Even if you're not convinced, and I think it's worth looking into and investigating. And we're fortunately getting more people like that into the field.
Absolutely. I know I listened to one of, I think it's one of his newer presentations Cliff had out last year or something. And he talks about not just the foot morphology, but finding multiple years of different foot tracks that possibly belong to the same individuals.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was a fascinating study that he was able to recognize certain foot morphologies from these individuals and seeing the growth patterns and stuff over time from certain areas. So,
yeah, he has a museum in Boring, Oregon, the North American Bigfoot Museum, and he, as far as I'm aware, next to Dr. Meldrum, he probably has the second largest collection of casts.
Mm-hmm.
And he's spent a lot of time learning from Dr. Meldrum and, learning the techniques to how to look at the castings. And he's become pretty much an expert on the tracks and the castings himself. And yeah, he's able to match these up with other castings that he has and look at the footprints and compare the size, the width, the depth, any kind of bone structure that you can see in the castings, or muscle structure, or bulges, anything like that. He can compare them and say, yeah, this looks like it could be the same creature. And that to me is fascinating, because if they're found in one place in Oregon and 5 or 6 years later they're found in southern Washington state or in that same area near Oregon, that very well might prove that there is one particular creature hanging around responsible for those tracks.
Absolutely. So I know that you said that you haven't actually seen one of these things yet, but you have gotten some compelling evidence. You've seen some footprints. You've recorded some audio and stuff like that. In your area, your research areas, what have you found that works the best for study? Like, how do you go about your research, and what have you find works and what doesn't?
It's been trial and error for the past 28 years. And I've tried everything you can possibly think of. Thinking outside the box, thinking within the box, trying digital audio lures, if you will, the game callers, wood knocking, which other researchers have said that they get responses to, putting out food. I'm not an advocate on putting out food because you can draw on other animals and bears, and then you run into a problem. So I don't like the bait areas very much. I've tried pretty much everything there is, even to the point of going out with any equipment at all, just going out in the woods by myself, sitting on a rock and just hoping something happens. So I've tried from one end of the scale to the other end of the scale. Sometimes it's a crapshoot, because sometimes you go out there weeks, months, years on end, and nothing happens. You don't have any experiences. It's quiet. You enjoy Mother Nature, you enjoy the forest, the common forest sounds, the common forest animals, and then that once in a while, that 5% out of 95%, you get lucky, and you have something happen that's compelling, and you can't compare it to any known animal in the area that you're familiar with, or your experience doesn't match the behavior of any other wildlife in the area. So that's what keeps me going, is that little every now and then experience. And I've had my share of them, within 28 years of being out in the woods, as much as I've had my share of weird things happen. But I've tried it all. I've tried high-tech equipment, thermal FLIRs, drones, night vision. I even tried taking out paranormal research equipment like Geiger counters, EMF detectors, things like that, temperature sensors, things like that, to see if there's anomalies in the environment, if something happens. We see some patterns, but not enough to really make a definitive decision or to answer any questions. They pop up from time to time. Like I've noticed, and other researchers have noticed, that some of these sightings are taking place around electrical sources. And what I mean by that, or I shouldn't say electrical sources, but energy sources like gas well lines, cell phone towers, electrical towers that run through, like a power, I should say like a throughway through the forest. They have those big electrical towers, waterways, anything that can cause or create energy. That seems to be where we're getting a lot of the sightings at. And that's where I try to focus: waterways, any kind of electrical source, any kind of energy source, gas, anything like that, gas lines, gas wells. We try to focus a lot of our research in those areas and hope we come up with some answers.
Do you think those areas have a lot of activity because of something being drawn there? Or do you think like with power line cuts, and I'm not sure what a gas line, if you want to kind of explain what that is.
Yeah, a gas line is like a power line cut in the forest.
Okay.
It's just an open area that's logged with trees on the left, trees on the right, and a very large gas line runs underground. And they keep that open and mowed and
gotcha.
Yeah, so people, if there is a problem that runs natural gas or whatever it is to the towns and cities, it runs in those gas lines. Gotcha. And they're out in the forest. So they're very much like a power line cut, where you see the big power line. I can't even think what they're called now. I'm drawing a blank, but you know what I mean.
Yes.
That's what the gas lines or gas well lines are for. They're just, they don't have those platforms and those towers. Everything's underground, and they mark it with these little poles every so often to mark where the gas well line is, so that if something happens where they're running natural gas from, let's say, a major city to a small rural town, they can go out and service that line if there's a problem.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm sure we got them here in Wisconsin. I'm just, I've never run across one of them. So I was just curious if they were actually like a power line cut all open in that. But okay, so I'm wondering, do you think that these areas, like you said, are attracted to these things because of the energy, as you said, or is it because like they're easy conduits for moving through the woods, or even just like ambush points, like they could use them for hunting if they're in the tree line and hunt something that is moving through there?
Well, I think it could be both. I don't know if they're actually attracted to the energy sources, but it could be used for a very easy travel route, like the power lines and the gas cuts, gas lines and stuff like that. Even the waterway sources, you're out of the trees and you can maneuver pretty quickly, and they're out in the forest away from civilization. So some people call them the Bigfoot highway because they can move pretty freely up and down. And if somebody does come around, they can quickly jump into the woods on the left side or right side, and they're gone. So I know Matt Moneymaker of the BFRO has said many, many times that they use them for not only moving and migrating and foraging for food. They also can use them for ambushing animals, because deers cross them quite a bit. And they could simply hide in the tree line on the left side, wait for deer to cross, and then pounce and have a free meal. They've also been seen near railroad tracks. That seems to be a big place where, and again, another energy source, if you will. That's a free meal. Those deer get hit by the train. Bigfoot comes out of the woods, scoops them up, takes them back, and it's dinner. So it's a good possibility they use them for a little bit of everything.
Nice. So I've had a guest on talk about how they put a lot of like trail cameras and stuff along rivers and moving water, because if they can hear the trail cameras, the sound and the smell of the running water kind of might dampen that a little. Have you ever thought about doing that as well with like power line cuts? Because here you have this massive power source of humming energy up there that would probably do the same effect of dampening any sound or whatever that these trail cameras are putting off.
I have not put them out on the power line cuts. That's not actually a bad idea. I have put them out near cell phone towers, and I put them out on gas well lines. We had a sighting in 2008 that I investigated. Mother and daughter were just out in the woods. They're standing at the top of this hill looking down a very sharp drop on this gas line. And all of a sudden, this creature comes out from left to right and crosses right across in front of them, maybe 150 yards away. it never looked at them, but it crossed over. When they told us about their sighting, we were out there with 3 or 4 game cameras hanging them up the next day. And unfortunately, we got pictures of deer and other small animals, but no Bigfoot. So who knows? Maybe it would mask the sound. My personal opinion on game cameras is much like bears. Bears can smell the petroleum in the game cameras, and that's why they rip them off the trees and chew on them and tear them apart. I think Bigfoot, and I'm just theorizing here and speculating, I think Bigfoot may be able to smell the camera, the plastic, and they might be able to see the red infrared beam that they're giving off. That's a possibility. We don't know for sure, but those are a couple possibilities.
Have you tried using, instead of the motion of a trail camera, have you tried just time lapse?
I have not. I don't know if they make time lapse game cameras. I'm sure they do. I'm not familiar with any models or makes of those. I know that the ones that I've used are motion sensitive tripping. And I'm going to date myself a little bit here, but back in the mid 90s, when they put the game cameras out, you had to put 35 millimeter film in the game cameras. And you had to, when you hung them up, some of them actually had trip lines that connected to the camera. But once the line was tripped, it took a picture. So yeah, we've tried to pretty much down the line from the old stuff to the new stuff and hoping they would work. And we've not had much success, no success really at all.
The reason I bring that up is we had access to a private property, and we had over 30 game cameras on this property at one time. At point, it was about 80 acres, and we switched some of these cameras over that were covering like long, like 2-track roads and stuff like that. We switched them over to time lapse, so every 3 minutes they would take a picture. And you ended up with 15,000 pictures, but when you're clicking through them, they're all the same. So when something did pop up, it stuck out, and we actually got a picture of one of these things. We believe that way. It's a black silhouette, like a shadow of one of these things, because it's too far away for the IR to hit at night. But it did show up, and it stands out because when you're clicking through the pictures, it's not there, not there, not there. Something standing there and then gone. So I always offer that up to people, especially like during daytime and stuff, because these areas that have power line cuts and long visibility, the odds of you capturing something crossing that power line cut every 3 minutes taking a picture are just as well, they're probably better than if you're hoping that something walks within like 15 feet of your camera to get that picture. So,
well, if I can play devil's advocate for a moment,
absolutely.
And please don't take offense to this. I'm not degrading your picture, but what did that prove?
Not a damn thing.
Exactly.
Well, we do have circumstantial evidence as well. We had audio recording, and our people at base camp heard the thing run through the woods next to them at the same time during the night. And we actually have a thermal video camera that was recording the other side of that looks like something crawled under it, and then we believe stood up, got captured on the trail camera before running around past the side. So we have 3 pieces of evidence that are all connected with this one. So that's why we kind of stand behind it a little bit better. But you're absolutely right. Who knows what it is? It's a dark shadow. It sounds in the wood, and it's a kind of weird thermal image that who knows what the heck it is. But
yeah, that's my point. It's great for researchers like us because we can share it with each other and we can look at it and say, that's compelling. That really might be something. And you very well might have captured a Bigfoot on that game camera. But is it going to convince the scientific community? No. And that's what's sad about it. It's great for talking points for us to gather and look at and say, that's some really cool evidence. I've got Bigfoot casts that I could show you to be like, man, those are really nice castings. It's just, it's for us, really. It's not proving Bigfoot exists. So I've gotten to the point where even if I'm doing research, it's not to prove the animal exists to anybody. I'm out there to find out for myself what the truth is. And if I can prove it to myself and I'm convinced, that's all that matters to me.
I 100% agree. I think that's kind of what it is, it's validation that we're looking in the right spot. And, what we're doing is, working to the point of that. And it keeps us motivated to keep going and keep looking, and keep looking for those experiences, like you said.
Yep. And if you do get enough compelling evidence, like in your case, you had the thermal, the audio, the experiences of people hearing it run through the woods, the game camera picture of something blurry. You can take that evidence and give it to someone in the scientific community, like a wildlife biologist or a naturalist, a park ranger, a forestry worker. Present that evidence and say, this is what we found. We think this deserves further study, maybe by somebody in the scientific community, and hopefully get the ball rolling in that aspect so they can collect evidence that's going to prove it. But at the end of the day, all it really is a trophy for us, if you think about it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, man. Well, we are almost to the end of the show here. I want to give you some time here to talk about your upcoming events that you got going on. So you got a pretty big one coming up here. It's the 4th or 5th annual?
Yep, 5th annual.
5th annual. Perfect.
Well, it's not really annual. It's our 5th event.
Okay.
A little background about this real quickly. In 1999, we had, I guess what could be considered our first Bigfoot researchers meeting in southwestern Pennsylvania. And the gentleman who organized it couldn't make it, so he pretty much said, here you go, Eric, you can run the meeting. And we had 35, 40 people show up, some of the public and some actual researchers who were like me, just getting into it. And we saw that there was some interest in people coming to an event. So in 2000, I began to host what was called the East Coast Bigfoot Conference here in southwestern Pennsylvania. And we would draw in crowds. And remember, this is in the early 2000s, before it became such a pop culture icon and so integrated into culture. We'd draw like 500 to 700 people to these conferences. And we'd bring in names from all over the country, well-respected researchers who've been in a while, to some of the new people who are out there researching. And we did pretty well at it. But it was a conference. It was indoor. It wasn't giving the people the chance to do the research and learn about the research and experience stuff. So I did the conferences for about 11 years, and I took a break because it's a lot of work and a lot involved. 2016, I was sitting around, and I've spoken at, I can't tell you how many Bigfoot conferences all across the country, hundreds of them. And they're all becoming the same thing. People are going to a hall, an event, an amphitheater, whatever you want to call it, and they're listening to speakers. They're walking around inside, seeing vendor tables, and that's it. They're getting to hear speakers talk about the research, maybe see some evidence, and really they're not getting to experience stuff. So at that point, there really wasn't any outdoor festivals going on, and there wasn't anything to give people the opportunity to do some research with researchers and see how it's done and see what equipment they use and workshops and stuff like that. So I had attended one in Ohio, and it had been going on for a couple of years, and it was just a small attended event, but the people there did such a great job. I think they were called Bigfoot Camping Weekend, Adventure Weekends, and it gave people the chance to go looking for Bigfoot in an area where there had been known sightings and active encounters. So I thought, well, Pennsylvania is known for a lot of Bigfoot activity. There's a lot of sightings. So why not try something like that here? And I put together the first camping adventure in 2016. And we drew about 300 people to the event. And it's a charity fundraiser, so we really weren't making money off it. We were donating to some local area charities. But we drew 300 people in, so I saw there was an interest in it. And we began to slowly grow it up until about 2019. Our event in 2019, we had, maybe 700-800 people come to it. And it was a pretty big outdoor camping adventure. COVID hit, we took a break. We didn't get it back up off the ground again until 2024 last year. We had about 500 people, 600 people come to it. And now we're this one coming up in August. And basically what this event is, as the name says, Pennsylvania Bigfoot Camping Adventure, it gives the general public and children who are into this phenomenon, families, the interested, the opportunity to come to an outdoor festival and listen to speakers, shop vendors, eat food from food trucks, but it also gives them a chance to participate in workshops where they can see how they can make a plaster casting, or they can see what tools are used to research with, technical and non-technical. They can see what kind of how to collect evidence and what kind of equipment you need to collect evidence properly to label it, to package and store it, and how you can get it off to someone in the field that might be able to do a DNA study on it or study it through a microscope. So it was giving the opportunity for people to learn how to do these things that they may not be familiar with. And on top of it, the cherry on top was on the nights of the event, we were taking people out on hikes in the woods to do actual Bigfoot research. So they could not only come to the event, camp at the campground in a very active Bigfoot area where there's been sightings, but now they can go out at night looking for Bigfoot and using the tools that we use, learning and using the knowledge they learned from the workshops and becoming a Bigfoot researcher, even if it was just for a night or two. And people love that concept. To them, it was, I'm going looking for Bigfoot this week and I can't wait. And they come out and they help support us by raising money for the charities, and they learn about the subject. They learn what tools to use, how to do research, how to cast, those sorts of things. And they'd also get the opportunity to look for Bigfoot. So that's kind of, in a summary, what the Pennsylvania Bigfoot Camping Adventure is. Bringing in the general public, the novices, those who are interested, bringing them in and giving them the opportunity to not just sit at a conference and hear a speaker, but to actually get hands-on, boots on the ground, and have that experience. And we've been pretty successful with it for the past 5 years. We've grown and grown, and unfortunately, COVID kind of put the brakes on us, but here we are in 2025 coming up with our 5th event. And if you don't mind me running down just a quick list of who's going to be there.
Absolutely.
Our special guests that we're bringing in, these are some of the more well-known people in the field, some of the celebrities, if you want to call them that. We have Lyle Blackburn coming in. He's a well-known researcher, author, and if you've heard of the Fouke Monster, the Boggy Creek Monster, he's probably one of the leading authorities on that subject. He'll be coming in for the event and talking about his research down in the Louisiana, Arkansas, Texas area, that area there. We have Dr. Jeff Meldrum coming in. He's been at our event before, but he'll be coming back this year. And he has a great presentation. It's all scientific based, and it's really compelling information he shares with the audience as to why Bigfoot may or may not exist. We've got Ron Moorhead. And if you're familiar with the Sierra Sounds from the 1970s, Ron was a part of that camp that was fortunate enough to capture these really unique sounds. And he's going to be talking about his experiences in the 1970s, catching these sounds and playing the sounds for the audience. And for fun for the kids and for me, because I'm a big fan, we've got a couple of the members of the Ames team coming from the TV show Mountain Monsters, Jeff Headley and Willie McQuillan, very good friends of mine. I've known them for many years, and they've come to all our Bigfoot camping adventures. So the crowd loves them. The attendees are huge fans. The kids love them. So it's a big draw for that. Our speakers are longtime researchers from around the area. We even have someone coming in from Wisconsin, Jay Bachochin, a very dear friend of mine, and he does a lot of research in the Kettle Moraine, which is probably not far from you.
Yep, well, I know Jay. Yep.
Yeah, Jay's a hell of a nice guy, a very dear friend of mine, an excellent researcher. Stan Gordon, 65 plus years investigating UFOs and research. And if you ever want to have Stan on the show, that's a fantastic guest to have on. Ron Murphy, author, researcher, investigator for many years. Stephen Schneider's coming in from Ohio. He's also an author on cryptozoology. Dave Spinks from West Virginia, longtime paranormal researcher and cryptid researcher. The Squatch detective from New York, Steve Culls, will be joining us. As I mentioned, Jay Bachochin. We've got Mike Familant coming in from New Jersey. He runs the Red Eye Bigfoot Project about the Bigfoot in northern New Jersey. Matt Arner and Sean Forker, both hosts of the podcast radio show Sasquatch Experience. Matt is actually a law enforcement officer who's involved in Bigfoot research. So he and Sean are going to talk about the research in northern Pennsylvania, northeastern Pennsylvania. Kenny Irish, a well-known cryptozoologist and author, is going to be there. And last but not least, another good friend of mine. He is a naturalist, wildlife biologist, and he's been a park ranger at some of the major parks like Yellowstone, Tim Cassidy. And he had a Bigfoot sighting back when he was just a naturalist. So he's one of the few wildlife authorities out there, park rangers, if you want to call them that, that's had an experience and talks about it. So we've got a hell of a lineup of speakers. We've got another police officer, law enforcement officer, Mike Ann's going to be presenting workshops at the event on how to do evidence collection. And coming from a law enforcement officer, I think that's huge, because it's going to teach people how to do the right way. We've got the night hikes going on. We've got vendors that are going to be selling all kinds of Bigfoot knickknacks and stuff like that. Chinese auctions, food trucks. There's going to be a DJ at night for the people that don't go out on the night hikes. And as I mentioned, the cherry on type, we've got the night hikes Friday night and Saturday night. We're taking groups of people out in the forest to do hiking into an area of I call it a Bigfoot hotspot, because there have been dozens of sightings in this area. So I can't guarantee people will see a Bigfoot or having a Bigfoot experience, but it gets them out in that area where there have been sightings, and they get to have that maybe once in a lifetime experience. And for me, the best part of all is we're raising money for a couple local charities. Fayette Friends of Animals, which is the local animal shelter, as well as One Voice, One Community, which they benefit underprivileged children. So we're hooked up with some pretty good charities. And for anybody that's interested, the dates are August 22nd and 23rd of this coming year. We've got about 3 months to go. You can get tickets if you're interested by going to PA, short for Pennsylvania, PA Bigfoot They're very affordable, $25 for Friday, $30 for Saturday, $50 for both days.
Nice. That's awesome. That's awesome. And that is the website is in the show notes for anybody that's interested as well. Yeah. Awesome people. I mean, like I think I've had about half of those people on my show already. Most of them I've also met in person. So amazing group of people. I love. Good to see Kenny Irish out there again. He doesn't get to many events, or at least that I'm not part of. So that's awesome.
Yeah, Kenny's a good guy, and
Yeah,
we're really excited to have him joining us this year.
Awesome. Very neat, man. Well, before we wrap up, man, I do want to talk about one other thing. You have a GoFundMe up on your Facebook page, and I want to give you an opportunity because, like I told you, I'm a big advocate of animals and helping out and stuff in zoos and all this stuff. So I want to give you an opportunity to talk about this as well, and hopefully we can do some good with that. So tell us about this little guy.
Yeah, so this is Sparky. He is a rescue that we adopted about 5 years. He came from an Amish puppy mill. He was a breeding dog, and he was kept inside a little cage for the first 4 years of his life. And we got him about 5 years ago in 2020, August of 2020, we rescued him. And he was, unfortunately, at that time, he was emotionally and mentally scarred, terrified of people. He's still very timid and shy around my son and my wife. He still runs from them, but I'm his person, so he lets me pet him and take care of him. About 3 or 4 months ago, Sparky started to change his behavior. Now, he's only 9 years old. He's a Pomeranian, only 9 years old, and his behavior started to change. And I started to notice it slowly at first. He was disconnecting from the family, not staying with us and the other dogs we have, but just kind of sleeping in the hallway by himself, walking very slowly, his tail down. He didn't have that spark in his eye, that perkiness that we all know and love. And this went on for a couple of months. We took him to the vet several times to see if there was anything wrong. And every time we took him, the blood work would come back as normal. His x-rays were normal. They couldn't figure anything out. They thought, well, maybe he has arthritis in his back and his back legs, and maybe it's just the anxiety from dealing with the puppy mill. Those were the things wrong. Everything was, we thought that was the problem. So we were treating him for the anxiety and the arthritis. Up until about 2 weeks ago on a Sunday night, I woke up about probably 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. I heard him get up, and I heard him fall over, and I heard him flailing around on the floor. And I got up and checked on him, and he was laying on his back, splayed out on his back, and his legs were just going a mile a minute in every direction. I couldn't figure out what was wrong with him, so I got him calmed down, flipped him over. He was okay the rest of the night. And for that next week and a half, he started having seizures. And just wasn't a seizure a day. These were multiple seizures per day, like 5, 6, 8. And Fortunately, I work from home, so I can keep an eye on him. I was having to calm him down and try to help him through the seizure until he calmed down. And this went on for about a week. We took him back to the vet. They couldn't figure out what was going on. They thought maybe this is something neurological. So we put him on Keppra, which is a medication, anti-seizure medication, and we got an appointment at a special neurologist specialty veterinary service up in northern Pittsburgh. And they told us at that time that, yeah, we can see him, but it's going to be very expensive to diagnose what's going on with him. And I'll be honest with you, we're a working family. We live paycheck to paycheck. You know, we make ends meet, but that's about it. We don't have a savings account because, as I said, we're paycheck to paycheck. I don't like asking anybody for help for anything. But when it comes to my animal, especially Sparky, they told us that just the MRI for him, for them to diagnose what's wrong with him, would be between $4,500 and $6,000. The CT scan, if they needed one, the spinal tap, the blood work, the labs, the follow-ups, everything they said could estimate anywhere between $8,000 and $10,000. So we started looking into loans, and we started looking into maybe a home equity loan or something like that. And unfortunately, we haven't been able to get approved for those. But somebody suggested, why don't you put a GoFundMe and see what you can do to help him out? And like I said, I don't like asking help from anybody. That's just not my thing. But we talked about it. We thought, let's put a GoFundMe page together for him and see what we can do. And fortunately, we've been blessed enough by about 14 or 15 donors that have donated about $1,000 so far. And we're so grateful and thankful for that. That helped cover his initial consultation with the neurologist and get him on the medications and start blood work. But we're still about $6,000-$7,000 away from where we need to be for his MRI. And that's really going to tell what's going on here. The neurologist speculated, without that MRI, he doesn't know for certain, but he speculated it could be one of two things. He watched and observed his behavior, and he could see his legs splaying and him wobbly, and some of his actual paws like knuckling under. He said it's definitely neurological, but we don't know what it is. It could be a brain tumor, or it could be inflammation on the brain, something like a disease maybe that's causing this inflammation, that's causing his brain to misfire, and all those electrical charges causing the seizures. They just don't know. So we put the GoFundMe page together for Sparky. As I said, we've been blessed to have several people donate and get the ball rolling and get us pointed in the right direction. So we're thankful for that, but we still got a long way to go. So the GoFundMe page is out there. The only thing I ask people to do is to help us spread the word, get the word out about Sparky. Even if you can't donate, we understand that the economy is tough. Some people don't have jobs. We get that. We appreciate anybody's thoughts, prayers, and good vibes and all that good stuff. We appreciate everything that people are able to do. The only thing I ask is, if you can't donate and you can't help out Sparky, share the GoFundMe. Get the word out there, and maybe somebody out there can help with a small $10 donation or $20 donation. It all goes to get him diagnosed so we can start getting treatment for him and make sure that he's around for a long time, because he's 9 years old. He's still got a long life ahead of him. Palms can live up to be 18 years old. But if he's got a brain tumor or some kind of disease that's causing inflammation, we need to get it treated. And right now we're just treating the symptoms. So that's what it is for Sparky. And just a quick update, he's on prednisone and Keppra. The Keppra is holding the seizures at bay. He hasn't had a seizure in a week, which is great. And the prednisone is helping with the inflammation. His appetite has improved. He's moving around a little easier than he was, but he still has a long way to go. So that's what the GoFundMe page is about. We're just hoping that people will help us out and get him the treatment, get him the diagnosis he needs and the treatment he needs. And I want to thank you, Barnaby, for putting this out there and getting the word out and helping us spread the word.
Absolutely. So we are, as I said, pre-recorded today. It is May 15th, and this will come out June 2nd. So hopefully people can go check out the GoFundMe and see some more updates and stuff. And hopefully once this hits, so that you guys can get, we have quite a few listeners here on the Untold Radio Network. And if each one of you donated $1, that would be huge towards getting some help for little Sparky there. So
Yeah, he's actually over here on the floor to my right. He's sleeping in a dog bed. So, yeah, I give him his medication. He's actually due for his prednisone coming up here in a minute. But yeah, I give him the Keppra. I'm the only one that can because, like I said, I'm his person. So I give him 2 squirts of the Keppra with syringes. Matter of fact, I have his little syringes right here. I give him his Keppra and his prednisone and just try to keep him as comfortable as he can and seizure free.
Absolutely. Well, I hope everything works out for him, and I hope that you guys get the funding that you need to take care of him, because no puppy deserves that. So
we appreciate it. Thank you.
No, absolutely. And like you said, if you can't, guys, if you can't help out yourself, just go into the show notes, grab the link, and share it out for him as well, because everything helps. So
absolutely.
Well, Eric, I appreciate your time. I appreciate you coming on so much and sharing your knowledge and your thoughts and stuff about Bigfoot and all things here. And hopefully people come out and check out your Bigfoot camping expedition and check that out. Sounds like it's going to be a great time. Sometime I'd love to come out in Pennsylvania and hang out as well with you guys. So seems like a lot of fun out there. So
yeah, jump into the backseat of Jay's car, hitchhike out with him, and come on out and visit. Jay's been out here several times, and he's hit those woods with us, and he's had some compelling experiences himself. So you're welcome anytime you want to cut out east and come visit.
Sounds good, man. All right. Well, you take care, and hopefully we'll see you again soon.
Thanks, Barnaby. You have a good night.
You too. All right, guys, that is our show for this week. Thank you for liking and following and subscribing all things here on the Untold Radio Network. Head on over to all the show notes there at the Bigfoot, Pennsylvania Bigfoot camping adventure. Go check that out. It's in the show notes, as well as the other Pennsylvania Bigfoot website and the GoFundMe for Sparky. Make sure that you share that as well. If you can donate, it'd be much appreciated. And make sure you like, subscribe, and share all things here on the Untold Radio Network and Cryptids, Anomalies, and the Paranormal Society. Until next time, guys, I'm your host, Barnaby Jones, and I'll see you on the edge.